Computer, smashing pumpkin spice latte, extra sweet. I love Star Trek. Like, really love Star Trek. Star Trek was not cool when I was growing up, at least not to the people around me. I didn't have friends to connect with about how hopeful, how inspiring, and how incredibly dynamic these stories are. For the longest time, I was ashamed of how much I liked it, so I hid my love for Star Trek and for all things sci fi for that matter. I would stay up late watching Voyager by myself and dream about a world where a person like Catherine Janeway led a crew in a badass spaceship around the galaxy. I wanted to live in that world. I wanted to know other people who saw the excitement and the beauty of that world. I secretly always wanted to go to the Star Trek conventions and dress like my favorite characters and have friends to talk to about what I thought would happen next or what the worlds were like beyond the shows. I wanted to be cool, to fit in, so I never talked about these things with my friends growing up. But as age will do to a person, I realized that nerding out about what you truly like is way better than keeping these things inside. I became unabashedly loud about my adoration for all things Star Trek. I started watching Trek every night and excitedly talking to anyone that would listen about how universal these stories are. I figured the louder I was, the more likely I would be to find friends that shared my excitement. I was on a mission to find Star Trek friends. My partner is a really good sport, and though he isn't as into Star Trek as I am, he is really into indulging my excitement. So, for one Halloween, he agreed to dress up as Star Trek characters with me. I had been watching Deep Space Nine for several months, so naturally the obvious choice was for us to be Jadzia, Dax, and Worf. I had been practicing creating prosthetics with latex, and this was the perfect opportunity to marry these two passions. I created a Klingon prosthetic for him, and I practiced painting on my trill spots for me, and sewed us two DS9 uniforms to canon for when Jadzia and Worf were officially a couple. I spent a good 4 hours getting us ready for the Halloween show we were going to. My partner even let me shave his facial hair to match Worf's. I told him that even if one person connects with us over the costumes, I would consider all this work a success. I spent days preparing my partner to act like Worf, to say things Worf would say. I needed him to be in character. I knew it was more likely he'd get interactions than I would, so I needed him to be perfect. We were headed to Walter's downtown for my favorite Halloween gathering, the Halloweening. We entered the venue, said hi to a few friends, and a couple of people came up to us to engage, but no one was getting it accurately, and honestly, I was getting a little annoyed. Like, someone thought he was a Vulcan? I mean, come on, man. A Vulcan? Give me a break. It's not like he was even dressed up as a Romulan and they thought he was a Vulcan. At least I would understand that. And maybe a casual fan would make that mistake. Now, if you aren't a Star Trek fan, let me break it down real quick so that you know just how super silly this era was. It's like if I were holding a puppy and someone came up to me and said, "Oh, wow, I really like your bird." I was offended, to say the least. That was most definitely not the person I was looking for. The night was wearing on, and we got several Vulcan salutes, which, okay, it was nice seeing that out in the real world, and who doesn't want to hear people telling you to live long and prosper? But I was still holding out for that moment when we encountered someone that really got it. We made our way to the bar. I was about to have that moment. I had been going to these Halloweening events for years, and every year the show brought out the best in the local Houston music community. I had actually come to the show to catch the band that was wrapping up as we found a spot at the bar, Smashing Pumpkin Spice Latte. My friend Joe produced this event and always had an equally ridiculous and amazing mashup cover band to take the stage for one night only. I looked forward to it every year. I usually knew the people he was playing with, but this time he was playing with someone I didn't recognize. When they got off the stage, that person came toward us as we were sitting at the bar. He was making a beeline for us. He approached us with such purpose, it was like he knew us, but since I definitely didn't know him, he must know my partner, Jose. Without a pause, upon arrival, he had stopped right in front of Jose and he asked, "Are you drinking prune juice?" Holy shit! The moment has come! I was bursting! I was giddy, gleeful of all the things to say. Only a true Trekkie would know that Worf only drinks prune juice at bars. We had prepared for this. Days and days of watching episodes of Worf. I tried to pour all of my knowledge into knowledge of the world, their relationship, and this character into Jose's mind. But then my partner just stood there, quietly, staring, frozen, not responding. The guy stared back, waiting on the edge of his anticipation. Those few moments of silence hung in the air like an eternity for me. I looked at Jose, waiting for him to respond, "Why, yes, of course, it's a warrior's drink," or to raise his glass and simply shout, "Kaupla!" But instead, he forgot all our preparations and said nothing. I could not bear it, and I spoke for him, which, reflecting now, is actually rather perfect, considering Worf and Jadzia's relationship dynamic. Of course she would interject when Worf would turn silent. Jadzia as after all the outgoing one and took no mind when Worf got antisocial or all weird as he would often do. Anyways, let me get back to the story because I really could go on and on about Jadzia and Worf all night long. I interjected and I told him that my sweet partner was humoring me and I am the Trekkie here. We exchanged conversation in a flurry, touching on Guinan and Ten Forward, the continued relevance of Trek storylines, the brilliance of Captain Sisko. It was a genuinely nerdy exchange. I felt a deep satisfaction that only comes after connecting with a stranger in such a fun way. We friended each other on social media, and unsurprisingly, he turned out to be a very cool person that I still get to connect with over all things Star Trek. Once CBS released the newest series, Star Trek Discovery, we started a club with another committed Trekkie, and for over 3 years now, we have been discussing the Federation and the truly magnificent world that Gene Roddenberry gave us decades ago. Star Trek shows us what our future could be. Star Trek is hope. Star Trek brings people together.